Thank you, Glenn. Nice to be with you.
Okay. You're on the campaign trail, which is the reason why you're not in the studio now. And I want to get to some of your more controversial positions later on in the program. But I thought we would start on a few of the things that I almost never see anybody talk about with you, the real things that most conservatives do agree with you on. I want to start by playing a clip of something you said just last week in the debate in Iowa.
Reread the oath of office, take it seriously, obey the Constitution. We are well defended against all enemies foreign. We should be much more careful about defending against the enemies domestic.
Who, sir, who do you believe are the enemies domestic?
I don't see them as individuals or personalities. I see it as a philosophic danger endorsed by the status quo. Most members of Congress, most members who have been in the executive branch over the years, the undermining of our personal economic liberties, our personal liberties, our privacy. There's been a special erosion of these privacy issues since 9/11. So it is something that's been ingrained in our system. You know, economic liberty is very, very important, but that's been undermined, you know, for 70 or 80 years, especially since the Depression. So I see them in philosophic terms rather than in personality terms.
Let me go to the UN. You say the UN shouldn't even exist.
Well, I don't have any saying about whether they should exist or not. I just am arguing that it's not in our best interest to be in the UN. The very first thing the UN did after World War II was they took us to war. I mean, Truman went to war, didn't even tell the Congress, and you know, we're still in Korea. And, you know, the Constitution is very clear. Only Congress can declare war. A lot of men died over there. So I don't like going to war under the UN banner.
You say the choice is very clear. We either follow the Constitution or submit to UN global governance. I happen to agree with you, sir. I mean, I see the Lost Treaty. I see the issue of global warming as nothing but trying to entangle us and the rest of the world into one world government. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, I agree with it. I think our trade agreements do the same thing. You know, whether it's the WTO or you know, the World Bank or the IMF or NAFTA or CAFTA, these are taking away our sovereignty. Even today, the WTO today was telling us that we shouldn't pass this agriculture bill. I'll probably, you know, not vote for the agriculture bill, but should I do it because the WTO tells me not to? So I don't like this undermining of our national sovereignty. So, and we've allowed this to happen.
You have said, though, that this is not some, if I may quote you, it is not as much a sinister conspiracy. The knowledge is out there. If you just look for it, you realize that our national sovereignty is under threat. But I have to tell you, and we're going to get into economics here in a few minutes, but when you look at both parties, you will see them. I mean, look at the budget that has recently come out. You'll see that they are almost intentionally sabotaging us every step of the way. How else could you explain some of the things that are going on at the border, with the Lost Treaty, with our budget, our monetary policies? I mean, how do you say it's not a sinister conspiracy?
Yeah, I guess that may be semantics that we're dealing with, but I see it's a conspiracy in the sense that some people believe in globalism, some people believe in the North American Union. I don't. It used to be more secretive. You know, the New World Order was talked about 30 or 40 years ago, and nobody would say it out and open. Now they talk about the New World Order, so it's not as secretive and it's not as conspiratorial as it was 50 or 60 years ago. People believe in internationalism, and I think they're very sincere. They just think the world would be better off if we had one world government. I don't. I mean, I don't even like the size of our federal government, let alone one world government. I want government to be local.
I've tried to explain this in the last chapter of a book that I have out on Mexico, and say that I don't believe that these people are intentionally. I think if I sat down with the people who are messing with our sovereignty down south of the border, I believe they would tell you, Glenn, this is in the best interest of the country, but they are not shooting straight. Let's talk a little bit about the NAFTA superhighway, where you have an opinion that this is part of the joining of Mexico and Canada and the United States under one kind of EU-style government, but they'll deny it. They'll say that's not true. You're crazy if you believe that.
I saw a major editorial today against me for being concerned that there could be a North American Union in our future. I don't think it's next month or next year, but you know, they probably talked 50 years about the European Union, and I think the plans are definitely there. I think that's why they're very weak on border protection and very weak on the immigration issue, because the leadership of both Republicans and Democrats aren't that concerned about borders. They're more interested in the North American Union.
Well, you say you don't think that that would happen, yet I find that hard to believe if you're sincere on this belief. If you've done your homework, you know that the ambassador to the UN from Mexico says it has to happen before our Social Security and baby boomers start to retire. Well, that's just a few years away.
Well, let me clarify that. I'm concerned about it, and I'm fighting it. It's just I don't think it's going to happen next month or next year, but I think the plans are being laid there. And sometimes individuals who promote world government are very, very patient. And our side is very easy to forget or let our guard down. And what I'm trying to do is alert the American people that they ought to be alarmed about what's happening, and hopefully we can stop it. I think we've made progress there. So quite a few states have, written some resolutions in objection. Texas has done this, and it's not like we've thought this up. If everybody in Texas legislature can vote and say, let's put a moratorium on these plans for a superhighway coming through, there must be something to it.
But the American people, and you must know this because you are probably the lightning rod for the most disenfranchised in America. You are probably the one who, I know, I have to tell you, I listen to your radio commercials, and I hear your radio commercials, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. I have voted for Ronald Reagan. I have been a Republican, but I've never registered as a Republican, but generally speaking. But I think most Americans now say neither side. They're both selling us out. How do you propose to stop this? And what advice do you give to the American people when they say, wait a minute, nobody in Washington is listening to me? If I elected you, how are you going to stop this?
Well, one person can't do it, but the fact that our movement is so big, much bigger than I ever dreamed, that, the way they raise funds and the way they join us, and we get 25,000 new supporters in one single day there, so there is a great deal of discontent in the country. So it takes an army of people who believe a certain way, who's willing to look at this in an objective manner, and I think we're further along. I think it's the first time in history where a grassroots-type candidate, an independent-minded person, has been able to compete with the special interests. I think that is the message of what's happening here. We've been able to raise enough funds. We don't have as much money as others, but we get their attention. Raising $6 million in one day is a special event. But now we can compete, and this scares those people who are controlled in government for so years, whether it's the banking interest, the military-industrial complex, whether it's the medical industry. So many people have so much control in Washington, and yet we're able to compete with them, and I think that's very encouraging, and this invites even more people in, because I'm convinced we're the majority. If you take the base of the Republican Party and the base of the Democratic Party, I think you're down to about 30% of the people. So many people have dropped out or never joined in, and now they're joining our campaign.
Ramos and Campion, the border guards, if you were president of the United States, what would you do?
I'm for pardoning them, especially now after, they've served 1 year and they tacked on this 10 years of mandatory sentencing, which I disagree with. And matter of fact, I've joined Bill Delahunt to recommend that as a sense of Congress resolution. So I think they should be pardoned.
I've only got 30 seconds. Johnny Sutton, do you believe Johnny Sutton? Something doesn't smell right there to me. Would you investigate what was going on with this administration and Johnny Sutton and everything in between?
Can I confess that you'll have to tell me a little bit more? I hate to have to confess I don't know.
Okay, no, that's all right. He's the prosecutor in the case, and it seems pretty nefarious.
Oh yes. Okay. And that is part of my reason for wanting the pardon, because I think there were a lot of questions raised on how that case was carried out. So yes, I agree with that.
We'll be back in just